My name is Nicolae Berbece. I'm a self-proclaimed game designer, but I actually use a Microsoft Surface instead of a Mac. And I founded a company called Those Awesome Guys, which is like a super small team from all over the world. And we made a game called Move or Die. And I'm here today to talk about the success of Move or Die. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to go back a few years. Really quickly, Move or Die is a 4-player competitive friendship-ruining party game that looks something like this. It's very fast-paced, and people react to it like this. So, 2010, I used to make a lot of Flash games, a lot of weird Flash games. Like I made a game where you play with 2 players at the same time. I made a Flash game where you have to literally punch your keyboard. A competitive drinking game where you play as a vulture, and a fighting game where you slap microphones. And one particular Flash game was called Concerned Joe, and it was a single-player, narration-based puzzle platformer, which is quite unusual for a Flash game. And players liked it a lot. And because they liked it a lot, I wasn't really happy with it because it wasn't performing as well as I wanted it to be. I basically wanted to do a reimagining of that game. So a game from scratch with new art, new graphics, new soundtrack, everything from scratch, a real game, not a Flash game. And in order to do that, we started looking into what languages we could use, or frameworks. And back then, Unity didn't have a dedicated 2D option, if I'm not mistaken, and Unreal was way too complicated for what we needed. So we tried C++ for a while, and after about 3 weeks of development, we had this, and we basically said, no, thank you. And we stumbled upon Love2D, and Love2D is this super cool open source framework running in Lua, and not only the scripting parts are running in Lua, the whole damn thing is running in Lua. So Concerned Joe was running in Lua as a whole. So we started development, and we made a lot of bad decisions in the process. Like, because we weren't on Steam, we decided, oh, we're going to make our own distribution system, where you would log in with your credentials, and the passwords were properly salted, by the way. And we stored the build on our server as raw files, and whenever you would get an update, you would basically make an HTTP request for every single file. So we were DDoSing ourselves. But Concerned Joe was a single-player puzzle game, and one night I was like, what happens if we add 3 more players? And we did that, and we added a party mode to the game, where you basically had some mini-games where you would like avoid falling blocks or pass bombs. And I showed this version to friends, and friends really liked it. And that was very interesting, because it was the kind of game you could enjoy with a crowd of people. So what I thought was, I would take this party mode from Concerned Joe, and I would release it as a standalone title called Move or Die. And my reasoning to doing this was, minigames are not remembered, and this would allow Move or Die to grow on its own, and it would also give us some practice of releasing a game before we release Concerned Joe, the big game. Spoiler alert, Concerned Joe never got released, and the focus completely went on Move or Die. But yeah, the year is 2015, and after 4 years of working on it, we went through greenlight. It took us around 3 weeks. And in early 2015, in January, we hit early access. And I've been told that you only get 1 release. So this means that you either get a huge explosion during early access and then a smaller one when the game actually comes out, or the opposite. You are quite quiet during early access and then a big explosion during the final release. So I picked the second option, and I priced the early access version of the game higher than the final release, which was quite an unusual thing, but I wanted to keep the entire early access period under a low profile. I didn't want to yell about it too much, and I wanted to make it very clear that it's an unfinished game. So as a result, this was the main promotional video, and I said things like these. If you want to play the game when it's polished and done, wait until it comes out of early access. Do not buy it now. Check out the next video for some gameplay footage. Not sure if I'm pointing in the right way. And all the videos literally told you, do not buy it now, which, again, quite unusual. But yeah, it was in early access, and I want to make it clear that it's unfinished. So the first thing you would see when you open the game was this screen. And on this screen, you would see the best contributors. They were basically players who submitted a lot of bugs, and we put their name on the splash screen. Recent changes we made in the last patch, what we're working on, and my personal favorite, a progress until release bar, which was a bar that I would manually update with each patch to give you like an idea of how close you are to getting the final game. And it's a cool visual representation of a release date. But during early access, we released 2 updates, the Workshop update and the Sugar Rush update. And the Workshop update was all about mods and user-generated content. So we released a level editor that was very user-friendly, and we encouraged mods. So I made the whole process of making a new character super easy with trailers and all that. And even in the game, when you finish a match, the game recommends you a mod, like, hey, check out this cool thing, because I think that's a cool thing to do. I also had a GDC talk about the polish in Move or Die around that time, and I think that kind of helped with spreading the word. And we also started showcasing the game at various events. And because we did that, we went at PAX East in Boston, and there we ran into Richard Hammer, who played the game on the show floor, and then later that night we ended up in his car going to his Airbnb where we made a temporary live streaming setup where he played Move or Die live. Northernline played the game on the show floor, and then he followed up with several videos about Move or Die that kind of totaled in around 400,000 views. And Jesse Cox also played the game on the show floor, and during the co-optional podcast, he kind of nodded his head.
Move or Die.
Oh, yeah.
Move or Die is fun.
1-year anniversary update.
Twitch integration.
Yeah. Also, the Giant Bomb guys played the game, and then they mentioned us on their panel.
One thing I really played, though, that I really liked at the Indie Mega booth was this thing called Move or Die. And,
Woo!
yeah, we got the folks.
That was us. But yeah, and also during events, we gave out like promotional cards, and some guys tried to sell those on eBay for $28. So it's kind of a compliment. But yeah, the release day came around, and we released the game in early 2016. So we spent 1 year in early access. And for those of you who haven't experienced this yet, this is how it feels to release your game. Check this out. So yeah, version 1.0, it went live. We added a lot of features to make kind of a build-up. We added a leveling up system, new game modes, new characters, and we ended up on the front page of Steam, which was mind-blowing. And we also got assigned a Metacritic score. Now, for those of you who don't know, Metacritic score is kind of an average of like some reviews out there. And in order to get a Metacritic score, you need a minimum amount of reviews, and that minimum amount is 4, which is exactly the number we got. And because most of them were positive, we ended up with a score of 80. That makes us as good as Elite Dangerous and better than Kingdom Come Deliverance, based on what Metacritic says. And that's how the sales chart looked during release. I don't have to point out where the game came out. It was very obvious. But even though the game was doing quite well, I wasn't happy because the game was kind of rushed, and it still lacked in certain aspects. So I had these 4 pillars that I wanted to fix about the game, which was content, replay value, online gameplay, and marketing. And so the updates era started. And I wanted to maintain the game with updates with the no paid DLC mentality, and I wanted to really stick to that. So back then, I was looking at what Team Fortress was doing, and they had these very cool updates that had their own logo, their own website, a tiny trailer, and all the features were presented super nicely on that website. So we started working on the first update, which was focused on fixing the replay value problems of the game. And so the Mutators update was released in March. And the Mutators update was all about adding mutators that add new mechanics to the game as you're playing. And the game was kind of getting popular with YouTubers back then. I also ended up on local television for some reason. And a lot of YouTubers play the game, so what I figured I could do for the trailer was to get snippets from their gameplay videos and kind of match those snippets up to the game's soundtrack. So I'm gonna just play you that trailer.
Up. Mutators. Change the way the game is played. Jetpacks, blind mode, deadly ghosts, double jumps, and many more.
So yeah, I also think it's important to show how players react to your game, not only gameplay footage. Also, in terms of content, we added like new game modes, new characters, and in terms of online, we added the ability to join ongoing matches, more local players in online games, and a friends list. And in terms of marketing, we managed to get some announcers for the game, like the YouTuber Critical, Brutal Muse, and a random Japanese guy. And those were quite fun because these updates kind of covered all those pillars, not just one. And I also wanted to make every trailer end kind of in the same way, so I'm just gonna show you that.
Oh my God, I forgot to move! This is the Mutator Update. All of this already in your Steam library right now. Available now on Steam.
So I wanted to make it very clear that this update is completely free and it's already in your Steam library. And so we started working on the next update, which was the Viewers versus Streamers update. And this was all about marketing. Again, I'm just gonna play with the trailer.
Aren't you tired of just watching streamers play games on Twitch? What if you could actually influence their game while they are playing it live? Everything you type shows up in the game. Pick what game modes the streamer will play. Vote for upcoming mutators. Try to kill the streamer by using lasers.
So while I was working on this update, I saw what Choice Chamber was doing, which was, I think, the first game that did this thing. And I kind of combined that with that Flash game I mentioned, where you punch your keyboard. So I took the keyboard layout and I mapped it on the screen. And I made a game mode where a Twitch viewer, if he presses a key, he would drop a bomb on that spot on the screen. And we tested that for the first time during PAX live on the Twitch stage with like 10,000 live viewers. And it looked something like this.
Just run! They can't get us all! I guess they can get us all.
So yeah, that was fun, and it didn't catch on fire, so that was good. We also reached out to some other developers, and we managed to get cameo characters like Shovel Knight, the Twitch logo, and the Newgrounds character. We managed to get Eageraptor as an announcer in the game, and we added a new mutator. And also, I was playing Heavy Bullets, which is a really cool game, and I really like the mechanic of it. And I asked the developer if I can adapt that mechanic in a move or die game mode. And he said yes, and so the Heavy Bullets game mode was introduced. Also, around this time, I've sent Justin Roiland, the creator of Rick and Morty, an email asking if we can use their characters in the game. And we started working on the next update, which was the Toxic update. And this one was all about the online. So we added an online chat, emotes, so you can taunt your fellow players. Host migration, AFK, AI bots, we basically made the whole online experience much better. In terms of content and replay value, we added new characters, new game modes, mutators, and all that stuff. And around this time, Vodafone reached out to us asking if we're interested in being featured in one of their ads where like a kid would play Move or Die on his tablet and the parents came in the room and we were trying to explain to them that Move or Die is not on tablets, and they ended up going with Pokemon Go in the end. So yeah, that was a thing, I don't know. But after this, my personal favorite update came out called the Best Value Update. So we were really stupid and we decided to make an update with an infomercial theme to it. So this is the trailer.
Aren't you tired of waiting around for a new Move or Die update? Don't you wish there would be a new update announcement with a thematically mocking trailer? Well, it's your lucky day. We have exactly what you need, and what you need is the Best Value Update.
Just to understand what you saw there, it was stock footage that I paid money for to remove the watermark and re-add my own watermark saying stock footage. So yeah, in terms of content and replay value, we added a lot of mutators and some game modes, including the VVVVV mutator, again, with approval. In terms of online, we added an abandon cooldown, various improvements, and in terms of marketing, we got Lily Pichu as a voice actor. And even though the other updates were completely free, this one was free 99. And we did a really stupid thing where I went on Google and I found a service where I could buy a hotline. So I bought a hotline, and it sounds like this when you actually call it.
Welcome to the Move or Die Best Value Hotline. You weren't sure if that number was real. For 1 second, you thought, nah, they couldn't possibly register a phone number. Could they? Well, yes, we can. And we did.
And a lot of players called that hotline and they left us very interesting voice messages, and I'm just gonna play some of them.
I love the fact that you can move or die. Go f yourself. by far the best ad for a game. I just bought the 4-pack because of this.
Hey, so I think you should give me this game for free. My name in Steam is
You guys got a... What? Wait, what number is this?
Why? Why did you guys feel that this was a good idea?
So we still don't know why that was a good idea, but it's my favorite thing. Also, around this time, we were contacted by a random Chinese company, basically asking us if we're interested in selling them the Move or Die IP so they can add it as some sort of loading screen to their game, because their game is very stressful and they wanted their players to play like a relaxing game during the loading screens. Yeah, okay. Finally, the last update for 2016 was the non-denominational winter holiday update, which was very inclusive. And this was all about replay value. We added teams. You can finally play like 2v2. In terms of content, we added a lot of game modes. And one of my personal favorites, the super hot game mode, again, with approval. A lot of characters, mutators, and around this time, we found out that at a TwitchCon, Shaq played Move or Die on stage while Snoop Dogg was watching. That was the thing. So that was 2016 for Move or Die. All those updates in 1 year, and then in early 2017, we hit the first year anniversary update. So this was, we even made some cool, cute art with the characters going on an adventure. And during this time, we had 105,000 crashes. 100,000 crashes. We pushed 106 patches. We got around 300 key requests on email, and the game was pirated by 44.7% of players, which is perfectly fine. I made the game so people can play it, so I'm perfectly okay with that. So that was our 1 year anniversary. And around this time, Justin replied to my email, and he basically said, okay, you can do this. You can use Rick and Morty as a character. And an important thing that I did that I think is very important to get these things was I showed them how Rick would look in the game with that initial email, so they can basically trust us with their IP. And I also showed him that we handled other IPs like Shovel Knight. So he said we can use it, but only if we release on the 28th of June. They were basically building hype for their Season 3. And the problem was that the Steam summer sale started on June 22nd. So this would mean that the game would go on sale and we wouldn't have any content to show. So we said yes, we did that. Rick and Morty, the Rick and Morty update was released, and it was obviously all about marketing. We made a really quick video with a cool splash screen showcasing how the characters would look like. And a lot of press picked up on this. Apparently, we were doing the same thing with other games like Gang Beasts and Rocket League. And because of that, we had the only cool video about this, so we kind of ended up being the focus of those press releases, and a lot of press websites cover that. So just to give you an idea, usually when you go on sale during the summer or the winter sale, you get one big spike at the beginning and then another spike at the end when people remember that they should buy the game because it's on a discount. This is how that graph looked with the Rick and Morty update. We managed to create an even bigger spike in the middle of the sale, so this was super important. Later that year, we released the Discord update, which we basically partnered with the guys over at Discord. It was all about marketing. We added some cool features where you can invite friends through Discord, and we also added their characters as playable characters in Move or Die, and they're adorable. And after that, in December of 2017, we released the Green and Gold update. And this was basically the biggest update that we've ever made for Move or Die. It was all about online and replay, and the theme was kind of greed. And we made the trailer into a sort of a Christmas Carol thing.
Old man Nick's face did not seem that frightened.
That sounds pretty good,
He said with excitement, without any doubt or sense of remorse. He started to make a new update, of course.
And yes, I am writing code on a piece of paper. But yeah, we added our own in-game currency and our own in-game store. And because we don't have any microtransactions, we called it not a store. And the currency is called not coins. And to make it very clear to the players that we don't take real money, the first time you open the store, this video plays in the game. Okay, so you just clicked on something that we like to call not a store. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I want to make this very clear. There's absolutely no microtransactions in the entire game. This means that there's no way for you to pay real-world money to unlock any kind of content in the game. And we intend to keep it that way because, just like you, we f***ing hate microtransactions. And that's why the design of the game hasn't been changed at all by this new addition, nor have the drop rates when you actually level up. That's why we like to call this section not a store and the in-game currency not coin. So yeah, that was the thing. And we also allowed mods online to encourage more content, user-generated content. And in terms of content, we added game modes, mutators, characters, and that was 2017. Less action than 2016, but still we maintained some updates. And now 2018 came around and we got our second year anniversary. And this time I made a really quick trailer showcasing the entire evolution of Move or Die. Apparently you can do a thing where you can map all the files that you change in real time if you use some sort of source control. And I did that, and it looks super interesting. Everything you see there, every blue dot is like a file that we're changing. And we also added some consumables where players could basically, it's kind of the end game. You can get some cool cosmetic stuff on your characters, like set them on fire. And I recorded the sound effect for that in my basement. Not a good idea. But yeah, during our 2-year journey, we managed to get over 500,000 players. The game crashed 100, yeah, a lot of times. And the piracy rate dropped from 44% to 37.3%. I don't know why, but it did. And this is how the overall sales graph looked from the game hitting early access to basically today. And during this period of 2 years, we released a lot of updates, and all of them completely free. And some interesting things happened in this period, like players play the game in cinemas, which is still quite unusual. We ended up being featured in the Blue Air magazine. I still don't know why. And some weird French quiz website stole our character as a loading page. That's still a thing. So I can finally say that I managed to address those pillars that bothered me when the game came out, and after 2 years of development, I was finally happy with the game, and it was in a place where I could be proud of it and I could show it to people. But I'm still not sure why the game was popular and why the game did as well as it did. So I asked people, I made a YouTube video asking people why they bought Move or Die or why they think the game was successful, and we got a lot of replies. Some of them said that it's the concept. Others said that it's because we don't have microtransactions or because we have mods or the art or all these things. And some players even made videos answering that question.
I think the successfulness of Move or Die came from how you advertised it. All of your videos were either incredibly hilarious or showed people actually having fun. There wasn't any Nintendo canned family fun on the couch bullshit.
And I saw Rick and Morty and I was like, hey, that's pretty good. And then I bought the game.
I like those little details in the game, like the character's faces changing depending on their life bar, the little splashes when you die, which don't necessarily add something to the gameplay. I love the developer's closeness to the community.
And for the PC, it pretty much became the Steam party game.
So yeah, we got all these reasons that are more or less valid, but I noticed one specific trend in those comments, which was that a lot of players mentioned that it was basically because of us, because the developers. Some said it's because the way we treat our players, or because how funny we are, or the videos we make. And yeah, it's not one thing. I realized that it's not one thing that I can pinpoint. It's like the collection of a million tiny things. And it's scary because I have to recreate the success of Move or Die for my next projects, and I'm still not 100% sure how to do that, especially because there's also some non-trivial amount of luck involved in making a successful game. So after all those comments and after this entire journey, the conclusion I reached, and I guess the takeaway, would be that both you and me, we should be the developers that we would support as gamers. Thank you. So yeah, even though I had 180 slides, I managed to make it on time. Do we have time for questions? Yes, so if there are any questions, now is the time. Hello.
Are there any mutators that you had to just throw away that it's
Yes.
interesting enough to talk
Yes.
about?
I had, so because Move or Die is kind of a platform where I can just throw ideas because it has this format of random minigames, I had a lot of stupid ideas that would only work in specific scenarios. For example, I really wanted to make a mutator where you would get swapped what the character you're controlling, and you would have to steal someone else's controller and figure out if that's your character or not. But this would only work in a local game. It wouldn't work online, so I kind of had to give that up. So yes. Hello.
Hi, I'm wondering if you could tell us about online versus local co-op, or sorry, local multiplayer, and how that impacted your sales or your reception.
It's tricky because I released Move or Die with an online multiplayer mode, and I don't have a frame of reference of how the game would do without it. So I feel like it's very important to have online in your party game because otherwise there are so many local games out there, and I think this online aspect brings a very valuable element to your game where not a lot of people have friends to invite over. So yeah, I think that's very important. In our case, we made our own engine, so adding online was a pain in the ass, but I think it was worth it. So I'd say yes, definitely go for online if you can.
When you talk about getting things like super hot mutator or VVVV mutator, what is the process that you went through to get those, and like how is that different from like getting Rick and Morty in the game?
It's no different at all. I literally send people an email. It's people I look up to and I like what they're doing and I want to collaborate in a way or another. And I think an important part of getting those collaborations is to show people that they can trust you with their work, with their baby, basically, because that was their game and their ideas. So that's why I showed Justin how Rick would look in the game. So I'd spend the time of developing that character before I send that email. So basically they can understand that, okay, these guys maybe know what they're doing. It's not a guaranteed yes, but I feel like it skyrockets your chances of getting that done. So yeah, literally an email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
So obviously you made a stand about how you're going to sell your game with all free updates and no paid content, except for the initial purchase.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to elaborate like how you think that worked out for you financially? Like, was that a good investment for 2 years or?
So I would say yes. The game, surprisingly, it's still selling and it's still doing well. It's doing almost as well as it did when it came out initially. I mean, there's no obvious, I don't know, it's not getting worse over time, or if it is, it's not obvious enough. And the majority of sales happen during discounts, like summer sale, winter sale, you get huge spikes. But I think it helped to keep those updates going because players get that feeling that the game is still being worked on and it's not a dead thing they just buy and then throw away after a few hours. So again, I cannot quantify the importance of the update. I can only go by gut feel and tell you that I think it's worth it. I did it part because I wanted to keep the game updated, but also because I wasn't happy with the game, so I wanted to bring it to a point where I'm happy with it. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with any future game. I'm still not a fan of microtransactions, so yeah. Thank you.
So being independent and mostly by yourself, how did you find you kind of kept yourself motivated during the initial development, especially doing things like online or things that aren't necessarily as interested in as other parts of it?
Right, that was the tricky part because we are a super small team from all over the world, and in the beginning it was just me and a friend of mine working on the game, so we wore a lot of hats. And when you're working remotely with people online, you start questioning yourself and asking yourself like, hey, is it worth it what I'm doing here? So a huge source of motivation for me was going to events and showcasing the game and see people play the game and having fun and smiling. And that was mind-blowing because that told me that yes, I should keep going, I should keep developing the game and release it at one point because people enjoy it. And it's that question that, are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for the players? So yeah, it was one of the trickiest thing, keeping myself motivated, and I think it would help a lot working with other people in the same room and be able to bounce ideas off of each other. So yeah, thank you.
Hey.
Hello.
So as a developer, how do you decide when your game is ready to be on the Steam Early Access?
Especially as a developer, you will never think that your game is ready. You will always know that you have to keep adding things, and you basically either have to have a lot of I don't know, self-control and understand that you have to release this thing because like it's a financial decision, or have someone from the outside come in and look at your game, someone who doesn't know all the tiny cracks and problems that only you can see, and basically have them tell you that, okay, this is good enough to get out there. In our case, we went with early access, not because I wanted to, but it was a financial decision. We needed that extra money to keep developing the game. Otherwise, I wouldn't do that again. But yeah, from my point of view, you can put out a game anytime, especially with early access now, as long as you make it clear that it's unfinished and you're still working on it. Players understand, and people at conventions understood that the game was crashing because we're still working on it. So yeah, the sooner the better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any plans to move to other platforms?
Yes, I don't know if with Move or Die. With Move or Die right now we're porting it on consoles. It's kind of weird that it's a party game on PC and it's doing well. Yeah. It's kind of counterintuitive. And we want to bring it to consoles because that's the natural place for a party game. I wouldn't see it on mobile because personally, I'm not a fan of games that are adapted to another platform that was designed for a different kind of gameplay. So I definitely want to explore different platforms, but with different projects. For example, I'm a fan of games where the gameplay happens outside the screen. So I would be curious to make a mobile game where the gameplay happens like socially with the people around you. So yes, absolutely. But I'm not a fan of adapting stuff and like forcing them.
Okay, cool. I love the marketing. Did you, do this by yourself, or did you have an agency or other people helping?
It was part myself, and later in development, I teamed up with other people, like that guy there, Rick. He did most of the logos for the updates. And I think that's important because I kind of go in like one direction style-wise. So it was helpful to team up with someone else who can handle this thing, these other marketing tasks, so I can focus on actual development. But it was all done by my team, so to speak. I had a publisher that was in charge of putting out press releases, but I made all the trailers. We did all the stupid ideas like the hotline.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. How did you financially stay afloat until the game hit early access?
Noodles. Okay. I made a lot of Flash games, as I mentioned, and back then there was this weird business model where you would make a weird Flash game, you would put it on a website, and sponsors would come in and bid on your game, and they basically would throw a bunch of money at you so you could put their logo at the beginning of the game. And that's why most players think that Armor Games made so many games, when realistically they didn't. They just sponsored those games. So I got a bunch of Flash games made by me sponsored, and that brought me some pocket money that I invested in future Flash games and kind of snowballed. And finally, I managed to get enough money that I could invest like in a real.exe game, and that game was Move or Die. So it was a very slow and tedious process that took a lot of time, and it wasn't something that happened overnight. But,
cool, thank you.
Thank you. I guess that's it. Thank you again for coming here. If you have any other questions, the guy in the weird yellow jacket.